The doctors were in a race against time. Jackson was being prepped for emergency surgery that would hopefully keep his air passages open. Without help, he would die. Jackson's parents, Chris and Leanne Suling, were believers, but they were a 5-hour drive from home and their church family. We were only a 40-minute drive from home, which meant we had a big crowd of friends filling the pediatric ICU waiting room with prayers and support. Chris and Leanne had no one. Let me ask you, what was the issue Chris and Leanne were facing? You might say it was the flu. In a sense, sure, the flu was making their son sick. But I'm not so sure the flu was the real crisis. God can heal the flu easier than I can shoo a fly. Getting rid of Jackson's flu and its side effects would be easy for God. The issue also was not faith. They were believers and believed God could heal their son. The real issue was that they were all by themselves. When we are in crisis, doubts can creep in. Our hearts can wander. All by yourself is a dangerous place to be. To position ourselves for a miracle, we need faith and friends. We need to surround ourselves with faith-filled friends. Digging through rooftops. One of my favorite miracles that Jesus performed happened only because of some faith-filled friends. In Luke chapter 5, we read about a man who was paralyzed. He had to live his life lying on a mat. Being paralyzed meant this man could do nothing for himself. He had to depend on someone else to feed him, clothe him, bathe him, carry him, and take care of his personal hygiene needs. This man was utterly incapable physically. He was completely dependent on others. He was also hopeless, because at that time there was nothing that could be done for him, no surgeries or physical rehab. He would have to lie on his mat forever. That was his life. As bad as it was for him physically, there were other devastating issues. In the ancient world, people with physical defects were viewed as dispensable or worse. Historians believe the Greeks usually disposed of newborns if they had physical defects. In fact, the Greek philosopher Aristotle wrote, "Let there be a law that no deformed child shall be raised to adulthood." The Romans did just that. In the 5th century, they had a statue that read, "Quickly kill a deformed child." There were also spiritual issues for this man. In that day, people believed physical suffering was brought on by sin. Suffering was punishment from God. So this man was thought of as different, less than, useless, and supposedly cursed by God. Yet somehow he was surrounded by an amazing group of friends. These friends wanted, more than anything, for their paralyzed buddy to be healed. They heard about Jesus and his power and realized the way to position their friend for a miracle was to get him close to Jesus. So they informed their friend that the next day they would come by to pick him up and take him to Jesus. We don't know if he shared their faith in Jesus, but either way he had no choice but to go. Because when his friends picked him up, they really picked him up. The next day, the man and his friends all arrived at the house where Jesus was, only to find it completely packed with people who also wanted to get close to Jesus. There was absolutely no way in. In fact, a crowd of people surrounded the house trying to catch a glimpse of Jesus or hear what he was saying. So, not only could they not get in the house, they could not even get close. No one would blame them if, at this point, they just gave up. The journey to get the man there was difficult enough. Now they couldn't even get to Jesus. They had good intentions, but things were not turning out the way they hoped. But no, this group of friends was not about to give up. Their buddy needed a miracle. They believed Jesus could do it, and they were going to find a way. I once heard Pastor John Ortberg wonder in a sermon if maybe at this point they had a little brainstorming session, the natural leader of the group passionately getting everyone's attention. The friends did what guys do best. They got to work at solving the problem. Guys, we have to find a way. So let's brainstorm. And remember, when you brainstorm, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Then they all probably just stared at each other for a long time. Finally, someone spoke up. "Well, this is crazy, but could we carry him up to the roof of the house? And could the 4 of us dig through the roof of the house? And could we somehow lower him down through the roof to Jesus?" More blank stares. Then the